thing originally was not, we're going to start a company. Our thing was like, let's just work together on a project. You seem like a cool guy. Like we both said the same thing. We both seem cool. Like, let's do a project together, man. Like, and see how it turns out.
So we're in this cab, the cab's slowing down. We get out, we start sprinting like to NYU's building. We get into the lobby, we get in the elevator, and in walks the professor into the elevator. And so we just like stand there.
From our shelter-in-place studios in our homes, I'm Vanessa Chan from Kinetic Creators. And today we'll be talking to Steven Skeel and Michael Ayjian, two friends who founded their company, 7 Wonder Cinema, in 2015 while college students at NYU. So we're really excited to be hearing from this seriously dynamic duo about how they got their start, how to work closely with their friends so they don't kill each other, and how to handle rejection so that it doesn't paralyze or really hurt. So before we get started, first of all, Steven and Michael, welcome to Kinetic Creators. And I'd love to start by having you tell our listeners a little bit about yourselves and give us your elevator pitch on 7 Wonder Cinema.
Thanks for having us, Vanessa.
Yeah, thanks so much for having us, Vanessa.
So 7 Wonders Cinema is a video partner for international brands. And what that means to us is we combine the strategy component of an ad agency with the production resources of a production company and really help brands bring their visual strategies to life, tell their stories, and get their messages across in a way that's more hands-on than either an agency or a production company independently could be.
Yeah. So pretend I'm one of your parents, right? Tell me a little bit about what are you like, my kids are so amazing. Here's what they did. What are you most proud of? What are your parents most proud of what you've done with 7 Wonder Cinema?
That's an interesting question for us. I think it's a number of different things. I think it's mainly though that we're young, we're following our passion, and that we're building a business with reputable clients. I think that's something that's really important. And we're able to give people sustainable jobs in our industry, which are actually hard to come by. A lot of people in our industry are freelancers, but we have full-time staff, which is not super common in our industry.
And it goes along with how we partner with clients. Since we're building a business and really getting to know our clients well and develop relationships, there's that stability there on the client side and with our team as well, which brings that unity to the table.
Go back to when you were, first years. What was the wildest dream that you had, right, of what this company could be?
First year of college was just when Steven and we met like 2 weeks before we went to NYU. We're both from the Philadelphia area. So we had a Philadelphia area send off and we met there. And then I guess it was about halfway through our first year, we worked on set together and we were both doing like PA roles, essentially production assistant roles. And we were talking a lot about like how we felt about the industry and how there's so many people on set and how honestly we thought we could accomplish the same thing with 2 or 3 people on set. So we were like, let's work together on a project. So that winter break from the freshman year of school, we worked on a project together and we were able to accomplish everything that we set out to do as just 2 people. Steven had a huge visual effects background. We were able to land locations. We got a great actor. So we really pulled the story together and told this awesome short film about someone in the military. And though that's not publicly viewable today because it's some of our oldest work together, what really resonated for us was the ability, and it really confirmed our thoughts, the ability to produce high quality work with a smaller amount of people than is traditionally seen. So that's really what we're setting out to do. We're really setting out to change the way that the industry functions in a number of different ways. And that was what first made us begin to work together and what still resonates true with our work today to a large degree.
Yeah. And in terms of dreams, I think the distillation of the dreams that we were having was, we want to be doing Hollywood caliber work, whether it be short documentary, commercial, narrative, short film, whatever it may be, with the resources that we had access to. We didn't want to wait to have to hire a 50-person crew. And Michael had incredible producing skills. I had, like you mentioned, a visual effects background, and we overlapped with the directing roles and cinematography and things like that. And we were able to put something together that could go toe to toe with anything else that our peers were putting together, waiting to get these giant crews assembled. And like Michael said, it wasn't our best work, but to us, it was an indication that, hey, this can be something where, why do you need 50 people on set when you can do it with 3 people? If you know a little bit about this and sound and camera, and I know a little bit about this, and we want to share ideas, we want to build that community who doesn't feel like they're pigeonholed to one area. They obviously can learn and develop in that area, but in our experience, the best results come when people are collaborating and everyone is humble and not, I'm the master of this thing. It's a group effort. And those dreams have started to become realized, but we're still a long way off, and there's still a lot of work to be done.
So there's a couple of elements of that story that I really like. One is the two of you recognized something that wasn't working, right? Like you saw a glaring gap in the industry, and you're like, let's change this, right? We're 2 guys with a camera, right? Let's try to figure out how to do this differently. And then also that you had the gumption to say, we can, right? Like, let's just go and try. And I know that this video isn't public, so maybe I can kind of bribe you to allow us to include it in the YouTube channel, because I really would like for people to see, what does the first step look like, right? The first step may not be perfect. Now you have award-winning reels everywhere. And I think people need to know an imperfect first step is a first step. And that is the most important thing. So I want to go back to that time when, you guys are both PAs, you see this glaring kind of hole, which is, why do we need all these people here to do this? Why can't the 2 of us do it? Really go back and crystallize for me exactly how the conversations happened and what were the exact first steps that you took to say, you know what, we can do this.
I mean, our thing originally was not, we're going to start a company. Our thing was like, let's just work together on a project. You seem like a cool guy. Like, we both said the same thing. We both seem cool. Like, let's do a project together, man. Like, and see how it turns out. And we did the project together, and it got a little bit of attention at school. We were showing it to our friends, and they all thought, wow, like, how many people were on this set? Like, everyone was asking, oh, this must have been a huge crew. And I was like, no, it was just Steven and I. And everyone was like in awe. They're like, wait, really? So we got a lot of people reaching out to us, wanting to do projects with us. And Steven and I started to do a lot of projects in school. And we did a music video for one of our mutual friends at school. And that got picked up and apparently it was on MTV. I never saw it on MTV, so seeing is believing. But but it won some festivals, and that was the main thing. So that was our first foray into the festival circuit, and it got us some attention by people who were doing commercials, who needed commercial work. We were showing it to our friends, and that's also how we got our foray into commercial work. And once we were doing that, I think we really found that we were really good at telling succinct stories and having like a unified brand message. If there's like a brand message behind it, we're really good at helping the brands tell their messaging and to help get the truth out about what's going on within their organization to the rest of the world. And it gives a really unique storytelling perspective for us.
Yeah, absolutely. With that music video that Michael was talking about, that was a really important project for us because we did it over the course of a whole semester, and some of our professors and peers were saying, oh, you know, this is just a music video. You're getting paid next to nothing for this. You know,
next to nothing, legitimately.
yeah, like why, you know, why are you not just trying to pump out volume just to get different experience? And I think it was important because time spent developing your craft is more important than the resources you have access to a lot of times. There's obviously a gradation as you get further and further down the rabbit hole. You need more resources to make more things happen. But just one example, we started to develop certain techniques to accomplish goals that we wanted to accomplish with that video. We wanted these super slow motion shots of people hugging and on the beach and things like that to time up with the music. But slow motion is a hard thing to do. You need cameras that can shoot at higher frame rates. They need to have specific tech specs to be able to do that. And our camera, yeah, special lighting. It needs to be brighter than normal. But we had a camera that could do a little bit of slow motion, but it couldn't do the super slow motion that we wanted to do. So we did all this research and figured out a technique where in editing we could make this slow motion using visual effects, like fake it essentially. And so when people watch the video, you know, mute this phone. When people watch the video, they're like, did you get a Phantom Flex high speed camera for that? Like, how did you, and to us, it's just that ingenuity that keeps us going on corporate shoots, on branded shoots. The techniques, one of the tellies we won was for a hockey commercial we did for a hockey stick company, where the character shoots the puck so hard that it goes through the boards and like the puck embeds into the wall. And the technique we used for that was techniques that Michael and I were doing when we were in middle school, like having someone swing and then move the camera really quickly and then have the puck crop already there, and it tricks your eye into thinking that you saw it fly. Like, that stuff is so fun, and brands don't realize that, you know, anyone can do it if you have the right team, and you have the time and you have the skill, and it's something that we pride ourselves on, combining that with the storytelling. Because that's the other thing that we learned. It can't be all gimmicks. You need to have the story there and have the techniques to support it too, which is really important.
What we quickly realized too was the technicals are really amazing, and like to have a great technical know-how is important. But with technology nowadays, the most important hurdle to cross over oftentimes is that storytelling hurdle.
Yeah.
To be able to tell a story in a succinct manner. A lot of people cannot do that coming out of school. A lot of our peers can still not do that. There are a lot of them who are incredible storytellers, but those are the people who really succeed in our industry, are great storytellers. And that's in commercials, that's even in music videos, that's in narrative films, to point out the obvious there. One's all storytelling. But that's the core of what this industry is. That's the core of what the advertising industry too is just storytelling at the base.
So there's a couple of things I really want to unpack in this incredible, you know, journey that you've had, right? First of all, you guys were not intimidated at all. They didn't have the money for all the latest toys. You're really scrappy and asked yourself, what can we do with what we have? Let's not worry that we don't have all this fancy stuff that we're learning in class. We're just going to make it happen. What do we know from middle school that we can draw from? Second, you just started with friends. You're like, you know what? Let's find some opportunities to help them. And then let's kind of, you know, see what we can do with it. Third, once you did that, you actually radiated your work. You showed a lot of different people and you used it, even though, you know, you look at now like that video made no sense. You were showing it and that led to more and more things. And now we listen to you and you have this entirely baked storyline around what you're doing. But at the very beginning, you had no idea, right? You just saw some inefficiencies in the industry and you just started with friends and you did what you knew how to do. And that's what I think is really cool about your story is you started really small. And over time, you were listening a lot and realizing where was your distinctive edge. And you found your distinctive edge in storytelling, but you did not know that when you first started, right? So kind of the journey you've gone through is really cool. And so to the student who's listening right now, right, and is looking at you where, you know, you guys get headlines that say recent grad, just 21, already an award-winning filmmaker, right? That just seems so intimidating, right, on how to get there. So to the student who's listening right now and paralyzed from taking the first step, they can't imagine getting to where you are right now. What's the one thing you would tell them to really get them over the fear from taking that first step or doing it?
Well, I heard an interesting quote recently, which is the biggest risk that you take in life is not taking risks. By not taking risks, you actually set yourself up for failure, and you set yourself up for a life where you're not going to be able to achieve the things that you want to achieve, unless you don't want to achieve very much, which is totally fine. But I think a lot of people are what I've heard of as wantrepreneurs, people who want to be entrepreneurs, but never actually take the first step. And I think it's very difficult, and most people fail, and that's okay. And you just keep trying and trying and trying over and over and over again.
I mean, we started as two people in Michael's parents' basement. Like it was not glamorous. It was hard to convince ourselves that people would take us seriously.
We had to learn how to sell. Being an entrepreneur, you have to also be a salesperson. That's a mandatory skill for any entrepreneur, I think. And Stephen and I did not have a sales background at all, like zero sales background. So the first year, when we started the business, that summer, I remember it was like we were gaining a lot of momentum and we had a lot of great jobs. And then that summer, it was sort of like, okay, what are we doing? And literally, like, we had like one job the entire summer, that first summer. And we were like, okay, how do we do this? So then the next semester of school, we like made a conscious effort to start selling. And then we were in like sales meetings. And then I would leave my class to hop on a sales meeting with a client. And my teacher would ask me, hey, what's wrong? Is everything okay? You seem like you were a little bit flustered in the middle of the class there. And I was like, oh no, I just needed to take a long bathroom break. I was a little bit hurt.
There was one class, Vanessa, I won't name names, but the professor would put on a movie at the beginning of the class, leave, and then come back at the end of it was like a 3-hour class, come back at the end of the movie and like grill us on questions. I don't know what he was doing in the middle, but everyone would tune out, go on their laptops, do homework. One time, Michael and I had a business meeting that the only available option was during an hour window in that 3 hours. So we went to the class. We're not recommending this to any students, by the way. And the movie started. It was a movie Michael had already seen because he has seen 1,000 movies. And so he just like told me what it was about and all the answers to the questions that the guy was probably going to ask. The professor leaves. We leave shortly after him, go uptown to this meeting. And the meeting runs a little long. And it didn't go so well. And so we were a little flustered. And Michael's like, oh, shoot, we need to get in a cab. We need to get back because he's going to take attendance at the end of the class. So we're in this cab. The cab's slowing down. We get out. We start sprinting like to NYU's building. We get into the lobby. We get in the elevator. And in walks the professor into the elevator. And so we just like stand there. But he was so aloof. He did not – the class was big enough where he didn't know who was like who. So we were like, oh, my gosh. So he walks into the classroom. We pause. Michael walks in first. We didn't want to come in together because that would look really obvious. We pulled it off without a hitch. He didn't notice. He was so those are the types of lengths that we would go to run a business at the same time as being in school. And really those business meetings were part of our education. And I'm so glad that we were able to pair it. We were able to both graduate a semester early to start the business really full time. Up to that point, it had been almost like a boot camp. When we were making All American, the short doc, we were driving up to upstate New York to shoot scenes with the reenactors and the plane that he jumped out of on D-Day, and then having to drive back for class the next morning at 8 a.m. Like it was a wild ride.
And Michael, you talked about resiliency, right? You used those words. We talked about how there was a lot of rejections that you just had to keep going back and back and back to it. So help me wrap my head around, you're in your, late teens, early 20s, right? Doing this.
Yeah.
You're getting a ton of rejections. As you know, most students, especially those at prestigious universities like the ones that you're at, they really don't want to take a risk, right? They want to be good at what they're doing, and they want to always have that positive affirmation, right? That they are successful. So tell me a little bit about how did you get over these rejections, right? How do you keep having the ability to keep going at it when you're not getting the callbacks and you've got one job in the summer? You probably called in 100 people. What is it that allows you guys to keep going?
The only way that we could accomplish what we want to do is by doing what we're doing now, which is going out there, failing, trying again, going out there, failing, by working for someone else, by not going out there at all. We're never going to accomplish the goals of what we want to do, which is to be an industry changer. And that's not easy. That's a big, lofty goal. But every day you sort of chip away at that block a little bit. And I think I tell our staff, I tell Steven, I sound like a broken record. I talk about the same things all the time. But honestly, that's what wakes me up in the morning. What's that high level, really big goal that we're thinking about every day? And like, how are we going to chip away at that just a little bit? How are we going to chip away at that just a little bit? And I think when you get rejection, you're like, okay, well, there's a whole world out there. It's not that big of a deal. Let's just go after something else. So we've been in the room with some really big companies that we've had the credentials to work with, and they've just said no. And that's really painful, companies that we really want to work with. But we get in the room with a lot of companies, or a company will literally come out of nowhere and contact us and say, hey, we want to work with you. And that's a huge win. So you're going to have a lot of losses and you're going to have a lot of wins. And I'm not sure what Steven's thoughts are to add to what I'm saying.
Yeah, I would also say, to piggyback on everything Michael said, turn your losses into gains, right? And one of the greatest lessons for us was when we were in the final running with another company for a very, very large contract, and we lost. And we had to do some introspective thinking about why, we had all the credentials. The company even said that they thought we were better storytellers than the other company, but we couldn't figure it out. And we were like, oh, you know what? This is a reason why I think. This is a reason why I think. And we were able to craft elements of our sales deck and our messaging material to address those specific concerns. And so we didn't wallow in our misery for very long at all. It became a point of, this is a learning opportunity to get to the next level. And I think both of us would attribute some of our largest new contracts directly to the altered messaging that came out of that failed presentation.
And it's clear that you guys are really fond of each other, right? I mean, it's clear you guys are working really well. And so I really want to talk about the relationship between the two of you. And I'm not going to go Sigmund Freud on you and start, psychoanalyzing anything, but you guys probably spend more time than most like married couples spend together, right?
Yeah.
You guys, probably know each other better than, people you've dated. Like I've seen you guys actually finish each other's sentences. Like you even have the space of know when not to talk on top of each other. So tell me a little bit about what it's like to work with. I'm assuming you guys are best friends. What's it like to work with your best friend? We've talked about the good side of it. You have someone to commiserate, but what are the bad sides about it, right? What makes it really, really hard to work with someone that you're that close with? And what have you guys done to make it work?
Yeah, our non-existent wives are jealous of our time together. It's a good question, and it's funny because I remember one of our professors, who's still an advisor to this day, said to us, he had started his own production company and was tremendously successful in his own right. So we really flocked to him for advice, and he said, "You're essentially married to your business partner. Like you need to have that level of transparency in that relationship. And there's going to be fights. There's going to be squabbles. There's going to be disconnects in point of view. But the important thing with any relationship is that it's growing together. We are very different people than when we first met. We've grown tremendously. I think one of the best decisions we made, we were living together also in junior and senior year of college, which was good because we were at class most of the time, and then we would use the time together at our house, at our apartment, as like office time. But we decided we can't do this. Like, we need to separate and have our own separate personal lives outside, which has been very healthy and important. But I think for me, it's the honesty and transparency, which is something that cascades down to the rest of our staff. We want it to be a community of trust, because that's the environment we want to provide our clients as well. And when we've had problems, Michael and I are both of the view and opinion that they need to be confronted right away. You can't let things that are on your mind well up inside you. And I know personally, when that's been like, when I've tried to go that route, it's always ended in, a disagreement, or like, why didn't you bring this up earlier? And that is the most important thing to me. Like, everything out on the table, this is what I'm thinking.
Absolutely. I agree with that 100%. Whenever there are any issues, we'll just call each other immediately and be like, dude, like, what's going on? Like, blah, 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 blah. Because there are so many things there are just so many miscommunications with people on a daily basis, even, that I think people take for granted or they don't care a lot about. But the fact it's like Steven said, you're practically married to your business partner. It's like you take some things a little bit more seriously than you might take them with other people. And I think that's something to note. But transparency and honesty is really important. Being honest about our feelings, whether it's with the business or in our personal lives, really letting each other know what's going on. And it doesn't have to be to an extreme degree. Sometimes it is, but we're very transparent with each other about what's going on. And we try to tell each other as much as possible that we think could impact the other person, about even what are our goals moving forward, not just with the business, but with our personal lives. Where do we want to be in 10 years? What do we want to be doing? Like, all that stuff is like super important stuff to be like constantly communicating about. And like, so we're on the same page. And really, it's having a teammate. We know we have each other. We have each other's backs no matter what. So it's really important to be there for that. And yeah, that's something that's super important for us.
So it's clear that you guys are just really fond of each other, right? I mean, this is what's really fun, is just seeing how much fun you guys are having. And I think that's a big key of it. Do you guys have like the shtick where, one of you is good cop, one of you is bad cop?
Definitely. Yeah.
So who's the bad cop?
I have to say I'm bad cop.
And Steven's the good cop?
Yeah. I can be bad if I need to be, but Michael is. But the thing is, like, it's not bad cop. It's just like
it's nice cop and less nice cop, or nice cop and firm cop.
But I read something recently. I've been reading this book called The Curmudgeon's Guide to Getting Ahead, which I highly recommend. It's basically this old stodgy dude who fully recognizes that his ways are outdated, but he wants younger generations to understand the way things are and the why they're that way. And he said, use profanity, use raising your voice, use a stern tone sparingly, because the moment that you do, people are scared and immediately. I don't think either of us has raised our voice. I mean, maybe slightly, but no one's shouted in our office. No one's gotten that. So I know if there's a situation that requires that, people are going to get in line. Like, we're holding on to that ability. But yeah, I think it comes down to a balance and embracing our natural personalities, being who we are. And I think I'm naturally more of a energized person, and I like to feed off the energy of a room. And Michael's a lot more of a thinker, and intelligence kind of holding back. And that dynamic works really well because, especially in sales meetings, when we're talking about some of the creative or how we're going to change their business, I can come in and pump them up, and then Michael can come with the okay, let's get down to business. Let's talk how we're going to make this happen. And we need both elements, and we can both switch to be both sides. We've gone in sales meetings without each other, obviously, as the team's grown, and learning both of those elements. But people don't want a phony salesperson. People want someone genuine. And I think our sales personalities are just extensions of our actual personalities, which is for the best results.
Yeah. And just to add to what Steven said, his enthusiasm is really contagious. You can see it in our staff and meetings. Steven, when he comes into a room and he's excited about something, he gets other people excited too. People will say I'm passionate and they can hear my passion in my voice, but I'm a more, like he said, a more reserved person in general. So it's really great when Steven comes in and he brings this level of excitement to the table about what we're doing. Even if, hey, it's something that people might see as boring. That's a huge sales strategy that I don't think sometimes we even think about. But when he comes in and he's excited and he's enthusiastic about something, it really says volumes to, wow, why are these guys so excited about this thing? Oh my gosh, we should jump on board too. And that's something that's really awesome.
So one of our favorite segments in Kinetic Creators is what we call our domino interview. And so we're pretty fortunate. We have quite a few CEOs, founders, and entrepreneurs who are really excited to share their journey. So I want to turn the mic over to you and give you the chance to ask anything you want to our next interviewee. So if you could ask someone who's similar to you in terms of, done a lot of interesting things, what would you want to ask that person?
I didn't come up with this question. This is I don't know if you listen to NPR's How I Built This.
I do.
He asks, and I just think it's a great question. How much of where you are today can you attribute to luck versus hard work? I think that's just a really good question. And the interesting thing to me is, of all the entrepreneurs he has on his channel, they all answer it differently. Some of them are like, you know what? I put in the hours and I earned this. And it's like, fair. You like, okay. And then some people are like, you know what? There was a lot of luck involved.
Okay. So Steven, I'm going to flip the question back on you.
Yeah. We have been lucky a lot. I mean, our circumstances, the schools we went to, getting into NYU, meeting each other, there is a lot of luck. But we also did put in a lot of hard work. We forewent fun summers. We didn't do much socializing at NYU because we were working so much. I would probably say it's a 50-50 split. Maybe a little bit more hard work than luck. Maybe like 60-40. But when it's hard, because when you think about all the fortunate positions we've been put in, you have to attribute a good deal to that. But we did put a lot of work into. So I'd probably say 60-40 work to luck.
Yeah. And I think that's important. Like, you have to be lucky, but you can't just be lucky and luck into something. You also, if you're lucky, you also have to put in the hard work. And I think that's why the barrier to entry with starting a company is so high, because most people don't want to put in those. And when we say hard work, it's not like, oh, it's a 16-hour day this week. It's like, no, it's 6 hours, a 6 day a week, 16, 18, 20-hour days for like 4 or 5 years before you start seeing any results.
And one thing I'd like to add, this doesn't have to be for the video, but just another anecdote that I think speaks to why I think Kinetic Creators is such a good idea. One of the most instrumental pieces of content that Michael and I found when we were first starting our video production firm was this Skype recorded video between this like entrepreneurship coach guy and some other guy who had started a video agency that's a little bit different from what we're doing. But it was like a 50-minute call, like pretty much exactly like this, talking about the same types of stuff. And we would go back and watch that over and over. What did he say about his first hire? Like, was it awkward when it was like him and this other guy, like, what did he say? And that just helped us so much. And we've since deviated our messaging, and we've thought about things differently and have veered off from what that company is doing. But these resources are so valuable, and we just want to be a part of them in any way we can.
Yeah, and part of it is I haven't seen anything like this out there. You know, one thing I told Aiden and Desmond is I get overwhelmed with the podcast universe, the YouTube universe. You know, things aren't codified in a way. And I also think there's a hole. You know, part of it is when I'm teaching engineering entrepreneurship and a lot of my material science folks, I can't point them somewhere because I tell them all the real world skills, all the stuff, you know, failing is okay. But at some point I'm like a broken record. So I would rather them hear the exact same stories and messages, but from people who are more relatable, which is you guys. And so that's another reason why is I really want to get the mindset shift, especially for Ivy League college students, to be different because they're so obsessed with GPA right now. I want them to hear stories and realize GPA never came into your story, right? It's all this other stuff that matters.
No one has ever asked us our grades once. Granted, we both graduated with honors, but that Stephen with higher honors than myself. But I think the grades we've never once been asked about our grades ever.
We didn't even ask when we were hiring. We didn't even think to ask our potential employees about grades. Come to think of it, we might have taken a peek, but like we should have taken a peek probably, but like it didn't even, that wasn't a thing that crossed our mind.
I mean, the most important things for us are work ethic. Are they likable? And do they fit the culture of the business? And are they going to be a great creative driving force who really believes in the message that we're trying to get out there and the things that we're trying to do as a company?
I love it. I love it. And it's clear that, you know, you guys have these amazing stories, which are all really funny. And, you know, you're clearly very fond of each other. And it was really fun to talk to both of you today. And truth be told to our listeners, actually, this is the very first interview that we've done for Kinetic Creators. And the reason why is we've never done this before. So as a true Kinetic creator, I decided to call the experts, which are Stephen and Michael, like, hey, we want to create a YouTube channel, a podcast. I have no idea how to do it. We have two mentors, Ayjian Young and Desmond Young, who are twins, who've never done it and are interning the summer with, you know, Kinetic Creators. Can you teach them how to do video editing and build up our multimedia channels? And they were like, sure, happy to help. You should interview us as the first interview. So we actually have some raw footage and try to figure this out. And so I'm going to put Ayjian and Desmond on the spot right now, who literally just met Stephen and Michael 2 days ago. So would love to, you know, hear from them. Ayjian, you know, what's the most surprising thing that you've learned about the multimedia world over the last 2 weeks when you've been pushing on this?
So I'd say my answer is a bit two parts. First of all, I don't know if this is going to be in the video, but I never knew that the take black and white thing when you smashed it was actually to line up. Yeah, Steven showed. I never knew that was actually to line up the audio. I thought that was kind of just like a tradition that people did that like really had absolutely no meaning at all. So that was actually pretty cool to learn at the beginning of the video. And the second thing, so I will say my sixth grade bone video for my science class, it was pretty good. You know, couple audio, couple video. I even had a green screen in there. Wow. So I was pretty proud of it, right? And quite honestly, that's, you know, use some iMovie, and that's kind of all I thought that video editors did, just on a much larger scale, was kind of having a bunch of audio tapes, having some video, and kind of cutting it and putting it together. And, you know, doing some research over the past 2 weeks, I've realized that it is way much more than just kind of audio and video. You know, there's about 1 billion decisions that Stephen and Michael have to make on, you know, different filters and different types of shots and all of these corrections that video editors have to do. And these are things that, you know, the average viewer may not pick up on, but they're extremely important just to the overall sense of the video and kind of just how it's being made. So I think definitely over these past 2 weeks, I've gained a bit more of an appreciation for, you know, how much work goes into creating a video and all the editing that goes into it.
And Desmond, what's the best advice that you've gotten so far from Stephen and Michael?
Great question. So for me, I would say the advice really isn't the words that they've spoken. but rather more of how they conducted themselves when we first met them. So we only met them, as you said, 2 days ago over a Zoom video call. And so Aiden and I, never really having used or edited even a YouTube video, and now we were being asked to edit a podcast, it was a little bit daunting for both of us. And then you also bring in these two award-winning, filmmakers that have achieved so much in the short time that they've been entrepreneurs. All of that mixed together was a little daunting. So going into the meeting, I think both of us were kind of like mostly expecting to be put in our place, mostly because we hadn't done any of it before. But then when we met them, it was almost like the complete opposite. Both Steven and Michael, they were so willing to talk to us, to walk us through things, give us recommendations, just being completely open, with their time and their thoughts. It was really refreshing and really welcoming for two people, like complete novices that had absolutely no idea what they were doing. So I think the way they conducted themselves is the best advice you could almost get from anyone else. Being so willing to help two people that had no idea what they were doing. I think that type of advice can be shared with everyone. And it's really useful.
And I think that's great, because that's really what we're trying to do right now with Kinetic Creators, is inspire people to do things they've never done before. And Michael and Steven, you talked about that a lot today, which is as you're trying, you're going to fail a bunch of times, but you need to go reach out to people who have done things before and get mentors, right, that can help you. And so I really appreciate the two of you taking the time today to talk to us, and also the mentorship that you're giving our team. The only thing I want to really make sure you do is that I know there's software out there. It takes 15 years and 15 pounds off of the hosts. So just make sure you let, Aiden and Desmond know how to use that. That'd be really helpful.
We'll leave that up to them. They'll find the tutorials and figure it out.
But really, what I got inspired, and I hope our listeners got inspired today from your journey, is one, don't be intimidated to take that first step, right? That first step may be a small one. It may be with your friends, but that first step leads to the second step, leads to the third step. And before you know it, you're award-winning filmmakers. Second, it is possible to have a healthy relationship with a co-founder. It's really about being explicit around communications, really talking about growth and appreciating the other person, but having the space that you need so you're not claustrophobic and being too much on top of each other. Third, that it's okay to fail. It's rejection and failure is all part of the growth process, and it's part of the game of life. I know that's really super deep, but it's kind of true. And, as you go on this journey, that's really what you have to do. And then lastly, you can be taken seriously and have a seat at the table. Even though you're half the age of someone, you have not that much experience. It's all about knowing you have the potential to get there and owning it, and then being kind to yourself as you're failing, that you're going to keep going at it. And at some point, you're going to have the body of work to show that you did deserve a seat at the table and continue to. And so with that, it's a wrap. And I hope our listeners are energized to get moving and to turn their potential into action. So thank you, Steven and Michael from Seven Wonders Cinema. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us, Vanessa.
And